Welcome to the Quantum Impact course. I am so happy that you are here. If you are in this container, that means you have heard the call of the solar console and decided that this is your place, this is your time to contribute to human collective, to show up correctly, to activate and ignite your soul mission on Earth. So, welcome. Have you always felt like you wanted to contribute? Like this is something that's in your being that always been driving you to naturally enhance the environment around you? Probably, right? If you notice back from the time you were a little child, were you always contributing? Perhaps to peace, perhaps to resolution of conflicts, perhaps to upgrading perspective. Perhaps you were just vibrating in a different frequency than maybe your whole family, and that allowed you to naturally hold higher vibratory rate that expanded a little bit the collective of your family. So if you always felt like that, it's because as a starseed or as a forerunner of ascension on this planet, this is something that is a natural component of your mission. This is why we're here. We are here to naturally expand humanity's consciousness. Have you been noticing all the things that are wrong with the world or with humanity's consciousness or lack of it? You know, all the little details that maybe create this internal friction when you see somebody is being inconsiderate or somebody is just not acting with kindness or they being overly self-absorbed and not even realizing that perhaps they are creating discord around them, or maybe they blasting energy out and polluting the environment, or maybe they're just selfishly polluting and not even caring that they are doing so. So if that's something that you've noticed and you kind of like can't help but notice, and it sort of, hurts inside when you feel that, that's also because this is part of your mission to correct that. Okay, so this is because inside your DNA, not the physical so much, but the crystalline DNA, you got components that are saying that, hey, I remember this to be better, to be different, to be more harmonious. That's because if you are a starseed, and most of you are, that's because from the other lifetimes in other more harmonious worlds, it's already encoded in your crystalline DNA. So when you come down here on a 3D Earth that is currently a mess, and you're seeing a lot of this density and confusion and lack of consciousness, it hurts. There is a natural friction that your DNA is activating within your energy system, because there is a understanding, memory, and resonance of how it could be. And then there is a current reality that's not matching it. So now you got two things that are not quite in alignment and they're grinding a little bit against one another. That's part of this heartache that you might be feeling about the human condition. Treatment of people, treatment of animals, treatment of nature, treatment of this planet. That is because your crystalline DNA remembers something else. Now, if you are a forerunner, that means you're an earthling that is an avant-garde of the overall earthling soul group. So instead of a starseed, as in from someone else that came to this planet, forerunners are the ones who are earthlings, part of this group, but are more evolved than majority of humankind. So if you are a forerunner, you are remembering the oneness that existed in the sun. That is part of what makes you a forerunner. You naturally tune in to this glorious, powerful, interconnected oneness that feels amazing. And then when you look at life around you, you don't necessarily always see that. So that would make certain behaviors of people very apparent because you recognize that they're not in the correct flow. They're not matching this universal sort of energy that the sun carries that is harmonious. So either way, it creates the friction. Starseeds feel this much more intensely usually than forerunners, but forerunners feel that as well. So if you always wanted to work with your guides, you always wanted to connect to something beyond you, maybe even with multidimensional beings, somebody who's way beyond this reality, maybe with extraterrestrials, maybe with intraterrestrials, maybe you always wanted to connect to something that is beyond the limitations of the third dimension. That is also part of your mission. And you're here because that is part of your mission to do so. So some of your guides are just for you. Those are personal guides that you have. Some of the guides that you have are bigger guides, so they are part of your larger mission, and they're also multidimensional entities that are not necessarily anybody's personal guide or in any way related, and I wouldn't call them guides, they're more like guardians. So the larger ones are Kadishtu guardians, and then on the solar console that are other multidimensional beings, and all those beings are serving at the highest level that they are to match universal flow to what is going on. In other words, to download these higher frequencies that are more harmonious into linear perspectives down here that are not always harmonious. And a lot of the negativity that right now planet is experiencing and human consciousness is experiencing, which we will look into as to why and what we can do about it, those components are different. They are not in alignment with what the solar console and the higher guardians know is possible. So for a while, humanity kind of went off course a little bit. Not to say that we're somehow doing something wrong. We're just on a detour a little bit and we're coming back to the original path. But the part of the reason of us coming back is because of all of you, because of us, the star seeds being here, because of you, the forerunners who are supporting the movement of human consciousness to that next level, because of what the solar console and the entire star community is doing to help humanity actually arrive to that next level of consciousness, so we can rejoin the cosmic community overall and not be so isolated anymore. We have been sort of programmed to be part of the larger collective of conscious species. That is our divine destiny. But for a long time, we've been going on detour and detour after detour and kind of moving away from that. And now we're coming right back. So this is an opportunity for humanity to step into the next level of ourselves, to step into that harmonious divine beings that we're actually meant to be, so that we can be part of the community and not pollute the community. Because the reason right now we're not part of that cosmic community, and the reason right now we're not consciously interacting, as a majority of humanity is aware of, with extraterrestrial races or with the solar console or with many multidimensional beings, is partially because they see us as a pollution. We're not conscious enough to join that frequency. Our range is not matching where they are. So we kind of act like a virus, like a negative something that infects the environment. And of course, they do not want that. So they are some who cannot do anything because of the non-involvement component. They are patiently waiting for us to arrive to the place where we finally resolve our own issues and step up. Some that can be involved, like the solar console and all of you that are here, we are actually doing something about it. So in this class, we will be literally learning components of the impact that you can create, how you can contribute, so that it's not some sort of like, okay, I hope, I wish that somehow I can change humanity, but you can actually do something that allows you to influence what is going on here and join the effort of the solar console and multidimensional beings to support this progression of humanity into eventually being welcomed into the cosmic community. Okay? So if you've always felt that feeling inside of you that you're called to serve, to do something, like maybe when you're in meditation or where you're walking in the woods, you feel this incredible energy of fifth dimension, this oneness, this love, this yummy flow that's happening in you, and you wish that you could have that all the time, and you wish that you can connect to that a lot, and you wish that you can have that in your body, and that somehow you can bring the people you love, the environment you're in, the country you're in, the larger fields and group communities you're in, and eventually the entire humanity into that awesome place. Well, that's actually what we will be doing. We will be supporting that process, and you will learn specific roles that you can play within that, so that you know how you can create this incremental movement in the right direction. And the more people are able to expand the range and hold a higher frequency, the more humanity is able to expand overall. And human beings, the Earthling soul group, learn by sort of a collective morphogenic fields. So that means if majority of fields are darker, negative, or somehow disrupting, that's where majority of humanity is plugged in. If on another hand, we're creating more of the beneficial fields that are harmonious and flowy and conscious and have unconditional love and so on, those fields become something that is highly influential within the human collective, which eventually makes gives a choice to humanity instead of connecting to this negative, darker thing like, oh, there's something else that's so much nicer, better, and funner to connect to. So people will begin to shift into more and more of those fields. And the more humanity does that, the more overall the collective learns. And once the range overall expands, well, then the entire group shifts. And that's what we want. So of course, there's always individual process. Of course, there's always individual contracts. Some people tend to go for another round, but we want to support collective humanity moving overall to that next level as much as possible, because that way we support our lovely planet. We support Gaia and Pi, the beings that are within this planet, and we help her recharge, replenish, regrow herself in a correct way so that we repair the damage that humans have caused. And we support, of course, the animals, the trees, the nature, and every level of the animal kingdom as well, especially the oceans. My God, the oceans need so much help. And all of that then supports the genetics within humans, so that human beings' DNA can start to adjust to activate some of those crystalline higher codes to help humanity step into the next level. So if you always felt like this is something that you really want to be involved in, you are in the right place. This is what we're going to be playing with here in this course, okay? So humanity right now is experiencing growing pains. So it's in the place of disruption, it's moving to the next level, but it's not quite there. It's attempting to expand its evolutionary step, and it's going at it. So in the sort of perception of multidimensional guardians, this is like a teeny little spark, flash in a pan kind of a moment. But from our standpoint, because our life perspective on time is very different, it flows much slower. We're experiencing this over a certain number of years. It feels like it's just going and going and going, when actually it's a really short period of time. It's only, some number of years. But from humanity's standpoint, of course, it feels like it's forever. And you're in it, it doesn't necessarily feel good. So that is also reflected by what is being propelled outwards. So as humanity is attempting to quantum leap forward, it is unplugging from the negative morphogenic fields. Those are the fields that are very old, that existed here forever and ever and ever, and these fields are linked to controlling humanity so that it does not join the collective of conscious beings out there in the universe. So because those fields have been so prevalent, humanity has been stuck in them for a very long time. And right now, as they are falling apart, human beings are unplugging, but they don't have the new fields yet. Or if the fields do exist that are more harmonious and beneficial, which of course they do, and we will be supporting them as well, many people just don't know how to connect to those fields. They just don't even know how to find them. So they sort of like unplug from what was giving them meaning and direction in life, and don't have something to plug into that is meant to uphold their higher direction. So they in this in-between place, and that is very chaotic and quite often uncomfortable. So this is where a lot of the current negative efforts are from the media that is constantly programming the world with all the dangerous negative things. If you look at the news, if you look at any kind of a broadcast channels, even social media, there's so much of pollution out there. That's because it's trying to capitalize to bring people back. So whoever's got unplugged from the negative field, that field is hungry. So it's utilizing these systems of, let's say, the internet or the broadcast, or certain people who are in power that are able to create particular campaigns and so on, to bring those people back into the type of frequency that they just left. In other words, to kind of like trap them back. So it's very important to correctly utilize the systems. I'm not saying that you should never look on the internet or never should be part of social media. Of course, it's fine, but you need to be the one in control. And we will look at how that works actually in frequency and what you can do about it. But just understand that a lot of this pollution that's going on out there, it's also has a reasoning behind it. It's not just like, oh, some bad people doing something. Think of it like if you step beyond people onto morphogenic fields, which are group consciousness fields around this planet. Some fields are so big and so old that they kind of like individual identities by themselves. And those identities get hungry when people leave because they get fed by people plugging into them. So the more people are feeding them, the happier the field is, the stronger it is, the more congruent it feels. As soon as people start to unplug, that field is getting like, whoa, I'm losing my accolades, so I need to bring energy back. And then it starts to look for these people and program them as much as possible with what is putting out. So it's up to us to be able to create stronger fields that are positive. And at the same time, if you are the person who's unplugging from some of the negative fields, to not replug back in. So let's look into the morphogenic fields just a little bit, right? So human consciousness can exist in the body and inside the energy field and in the higher fields, which are group fields. So depending on the level of consciousness, this is where the human being exists. And you are here for a reason. You are here on this planet as the beautiful being from the universe connected to source energies. You naturally have that in your being, in your heart, in your DNA. You are here to support the amplification of the collective fields that are already standing in higher consciousness. Not necessarily to do anything directly with the negative fields, and there are specific things we can do, and I will teach you what those things are. But majority of the work is to uphold within yourself that frequency. So human consciousness can exist within the body, of course, within your energy field, depending on a level of consciousness. If somebody has a self already formed, then it will be within their field. If they do not have a self formed, which unfortunately majority of the humankind right now, the earthling soul group, they do not have an individual self formed yet. Their self is just a composite of projections of conditioning, imprinting, and karmic overlays. And then there is a group field. That is the next level of placement, I guess you can think of it, of consciousness. Now, somebody who has a self, like let's say an advanced conscious person, a forerunner or a starseed. We can have our consciousness within our body, fully anchored. We can have it within our energy field, within our personality and identity. And we can connect to higher fields that we choose to connect to. That's the free will power in here. Now, let's look at the person who is not an advanced person yet. That person has a body, but doesn't have a self yet, which means inside their field, there is no consciousness. There's just different things that they picked up from other people, and composite of those kind of makes who they are. That composite then plugs in to the energetic field, the larger collective field of the consciousness that supports it, that supports that frequency that this specific person has been programmed with. So I'll give you an example. Let's say somebody is a conscious being, and let's say you're a starseed, you're here, you understand unconditional love and compassion. And you can hold that compassion code within your body. It can feel yummy. You can hold it in your heart. You can hold it in your energy system. It feels great. You can sometimes feel negativity within your field, but you're still able to tune into compassion. When you connect to the higher fields, you have a choice. That's the free will choice. You now can connect to the negative controlling fields to amplify some of your karmic patterns, or hopefully you will connect to beautiful fields of abundance, love, and so on, the more positive, beneficial fields. You have that choice. And of course, the more masterful we become, the more we connect to the higher harmonious fields. Now, an example of somebody who's not conscious, not somebody who has formed a self yet. That person obviously has a body. They have their consciousness in a body. And let's say they were in their life told that they have to be selfish if they want to get what they want. or they were told that if they speak up, they will only get hurt, so they better not speak up and hide. So that's the imprint that is held now within the energy field of that person. Now, that person does not have a free will choice as to which field they connect in, because this is not self-initiated. This is all programmed. So that means whatever this programming wants to connect to, it probably will connect to victim-victimizer field, because this is where they already have that imprint. If they were told be selfish and go and push and make your way, probably the victimizer part. If they were told that, oh no, don't step up, don't show up and hide, and that's the only way to be safe, probably the victim side of the same field. But you can see how it's almost like they get magnetized to that frequency. That's what happens to majority of human beings. And this is what we are here to shift. Why we are learning these specific impact codes, so that we can actually facilitate the change in humanity, so that people, instead of going on this autopilot, magnetizing to the negative fields, they start to develop more of something within themselves, because they are being influenced by the harmonious positive fields. See, every morphogenic field creates a resonance. That resonance goes inwards onto the planet, interpenetrates everything and every person. But depending on what frequency your antenna is attuned to, you will perceive it or not. So we right now are coexisting with many, many, many fields. Like right now in your room, whatever you're listening to me, you are sitting in a space that's not just you. In that space, there every field that exists on the planet. Most of them are not location based. They kind of throughout the planet. So they all here. So there's a field of abundance, there's a field of compassion, there's a field of unconditional love, there's a savior field, the false gods field, the true source field, victim-victimizer field, all of these things, like controlled hierarchy field, that's another negative field, religion fields, right? That's, many of those. Also oneness, interconnectedness, the positive field. All those fields are here right now where you are sitting. But depending on how your energetics are aligned to what your antenna is attuned to, essentially, you're going to pick up specific frequencies and repel, essentially, or ignore the others. So by doing the work that we will be doing here, you will learn to specifically amplify your frequency in a certain way that allows you to connect to those higher fields, like tune up your antenna to the correct higher frequency that's much more harmonious. And because of that, you amplify those fields. So now, if the person who doesn't have a clear self, who maybe has a lot of conditioning and imprinting and karmic patterns and never really done much work with themselves, they are sitting in the same soup of all these fields. Habitually, they are magnetized to the negative field that's matching their karmic patterns. But now the work, let's say, you have done that amplify the beneficial field, that field is starting to broadcast stronger charge. So now this person who's sitting in all the possibilities, but kind of habitually magnetized to this negative field, has an interference pattern. Something that says, yeah, but what about this compassion thing? What if you just kind? What if instead you choose to give up on revenge or something? And this creates a little bit of a discrepancy within the person. That's what then unplugs that person from the negative field. That is awesome. Now, we do not have the right to then take this person and plug him or her into the harmonious field. That would be awesome, but we do not have that right, because every human being has free will. Every soul on this planet has its own journey. What we can do is create a point of reference and to create an opportunity. Without an opportunity, nothing can happen. And for a very long time on this planet, there was absolutely no opportunity, because majority fields were all very dark, very negative, very controlling. And there were little bubbles of light of the mystery schools that sort of were holding different fields. But these fields were not planet-wide. They were held in location-specific territories. That has changed. For a while now, for about 100 years, we now have these fields around the entire planet, positive and negative. Negative ones had strength for centuries and millennia, and the positive ones are gaining strength. So the work we are doing here with amplifying our impact is about attuning yourself to these positive, harmonious fields, so that you can then amplify the field, and by doing so create a opportunity, point of reference, and an internal discord for somebody who's plugged into the negative field. So now they have a choice which field that they can connect to. They didn't have that choice before. That's what we're creating. We're essentially giving humanity an opportunity to choose something more harmonious. And because each human being soul is being worked with their guides and so on, all the community out there and the guides and the species and everybody are working so hard to really bring each human being into the positive field and unplug them from the lower field. So the more we can support that process, the easier it will be for humanity to enter its next evolutionary step. So that's why it is so important, the work that you are doing here. And your contribution matters. What you're doing is super important. Each voice, each piece, it's like you're this unique puzzle piece in the whole collective of humanity. And the fact that you are alive right now, the fact that you have the body right now, that you are incarnate, that you're conscious, that you're on the journey, that you're listening to me right now, that is huge. That is actually part of your developmental process personally, but this is also because this is your soul mission. This is how we ignite your soul mission, so that you get to have this incredible inner soul fire to come out and actually do your part with this spark of divinity within you to support human collective. Okay? So the impact that we're talking about, it's about embodying the individual oneness impact codes. Okay, so this is what Solar Council teaches. This is what all the Solar Council participants have and embody already. Many of you have components of that. So here we will be bringing conscious awareness to it and working with this. So for the ones of you who are not sure what I just said about individual oneness, which sounds like what? Because those two things are opposite. Think of it like it's individuality of your soul self and then interconnectedness of oneness. They meant to coexist. We are not progressing from here to the next level of consciousness when we become some sort of a homogeneous oneness and lose who we are. No, we each remain individual sparks, and that is the beauty and power and amazing glory of the universe, is that each one of us contributes to universal intelligence by our uniqueness. It's not about erasing who we are. But, and the big but here and the small but, the big but is that it's not the ego self that's making there. And the small but is that you have to actually be aligned through all the components of yourself. So what I mean by that is that when we're talking about individuality, of course, in a human sense, we're talking about your personality, how your body looks, what your preferences are, and so on. But in a sense of individualized oneness, what we're really talking about is the individuality of your soul self. That is the part of you that remains alive after any lifetime. So when you have a life, then at some point the life is complete, you progress to another side, then you come back again, reincarnation, then you learn another lesson, you transfer to another side, then you create a soul contract, you incarnate again, and so on. That process, what carries over from this, and including for starseeds from different star systems, different bodies all together onto planet Earth, is something that is uniquely you. That soul, that thing that you can say, okay, that is me, the soul that is within spirit, but it's not spirit, it's individualized. That's what we call the soul self. That's the part that remains in oneness. So if the oneness is everything that there is, then your individualized spark or perspective or the wisdom that your soul has learned through the journey of all the lifetimes, that beautiful, amazing thing that only you can have, and that's what you bring to the universe, that's what you contribute to the universal intelligence as the totality. So now everybody can understand reality from that specific unique angle that only you can. That's what individualized oneness is. So within that, there are specific impact codes. Those impact codes originated in a 10th dimension. They were created by Kadishtu guardians. This is like way beyond solar system. So we're talking about not even from like how we think of this solar system and this star and whatever, but way before, like something that you can say like the Big Bang, kind of like going beyond that. And then whatever started after the Big Bang, when the universe even begun to sort of show up in here, the consciousnesses or the big beings that were part of creating the environment, creating the universe, essentially. Those are the Kadishtu guardians. So we have worked with some of them before. If you have not been in those classes, they are available. So just ask me. But those are the 10D Kadishtu guardians that then supported the evolution of many different species. So here we are working with our favorite ones. That are specific to what we are doing here, that participate also with the solar council. There are obviously many, but I'm just naming the specific 5 that we typically work with, or 6. So Patal, those are the elves. Kital, those are the Kishans. They kind of look like Yoda. And Jira, the dragons, the plasma fire beings. The Kitri, those are the liquid aquatics, cetaceans come from them. Angeli, those are the angels, the avians as well, they come from that, and the butterflies. And Oaum, those are the void beings, the lovely beings that sort of from which all the creation comes. Those are the ones that helped us so much to anchor our Transcension gate in the sun and in the earth, but especially in the sun. It's their void sphere that's holding it in there. So thank you very much, Oaum, and others. But those are the main Kadishtu guardians that I work with, that Solar Council work with, and those are the ones that you get to connect to through this course as we do this. So they have created those codes a long time ago for the purpose of being able to descend dimensions. Because at some point the universe was just higher dimensions, like 12D, the outer envelope, the 13D, and then, 11, the library, and 10D, the guardians. And then after that, kind of nothing. So then as they started to create lower dimensions, especially after 6, it splits into much more intense duality. So to be able to go beyond the 6th, they created the impact codes so that they have some individuals that can carry these codes to create impact to actually shift the pathways back home so that it does not go too far into density to the point it's irretrievable and experiment has to be wrapped. So that's why we have those codes. Some of you, many of you, especially if you're a starseed, you already have those impact codes inside your crystalline DNA. But they probably are dormant because when you came to Earth and if you got wounded, if you got some trauma and whatever happened karmically, a lot of times we just turn those things off because they feel way too much or too dangerous to have or make you too apparent of a light being. So you might have them, but they might be turned off. Or you might not have them. If you're a forerunner, you might have already downloaded some from your guides and the spiritual work you've been doing, or you might not have. So then for you, this would be actually bringing it into your field for the first time. Either way, we need to activate them so that they actually do something for humanity, the planet, and ourselves. So in this container, we will connect to those impact codes. We will download them. We will embody them in this form inside our DNA. We will activate them. And then I will show you how to use them in a specific way that actually benefits you and humanity. This is how you contribute to human evolution and how you expand the range of frequency that humanity lives in. So in this course, we are looking at 4 impact codes. There are many more, so I'm not telling you that the 4 is all that there is. There are many more, but this is where it gets too complicated. So here we're going to look at the 4 major ones that are sort of foundational within. If you have those 4 codes, you can do the work. And some of you might activate more afterwards just because this is foundation that's already active. But we got to start at the beginning because if you don't have those 4, you cannot actually activate the others. So these 4 are going to be our foundation that we will practice to really make sure that your field, your DNA can have them and you get to utilize that code. Okay? So what are the 4 codes that we will be looking at? Divine Self Impact Code, Akashic Individuality Impact Code, Soul Mission, Starseed Mission Divine Code, and Divine Certainty Impact Code. So those are the magical 4 codes that we will be playing with.